INEOS have ripped up so much of Manchester United's pre-existing structure, and there is so much that needs to be explained. Dan Ashworth is now our sporting director, finally. Omar Barada starts as CEO in mid-July, and we're about to appoint a new director of recruitment. Let me explain everything to you, because this is not evolution under INEOS, no way. It is complete revolution, no doubt about it. It really is an understatement to say that change has been happening at Manchester United since INEOS took over. And what I'm going to do in this video is give you a complete summary of all the footballing operational changes and the business side of things and more that is coming, and maybe some that you don't know about, to give you a complete summary to try, make it easier for you to understand exactly where all this revolution is happening. You might think it's a strong word to call it that, but it's certainly not evolution. That's why I think so anyway. Please do drop a like in this video. Let's see if we can get to, 3,000 likes. Makes a big difference. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm not Elvis. Anyway, let's get into the video. Jim Ratcliffe. So much change has been happening. And the first major change that happened that caught pretty much everybody off guard, nobody was mentioning Omar Barada's name. INEOS operated behind the scenes quietly through all the conversations between Brailsford and Ratcliffe and people they were speaking to. Omar Barada's name came up. Swoop. We went and we got him from City. He served his gardening leave. He's got 11 days left. And then he's going to become our CEO. Technically the most important person on paper. But I think Omar Barada's position is going to cross not just the football club of Manchester United. I think he's going to be involved in a multi-club model. He's going to be involved in bigger conversations than just our football team. So arguably you could say Dan Ashworth is the most important man. When you're looking specifically at Manchester United as a football club, Omar Barada is going to have experience and looking, I suppose, above as well as below. Whereas Dan Ashworth really is going to be focusing purely on the sporting team. He's going to be looking at the academy. He's going to be looking at the first team. He's going to be looking at the players, looking at transfers. He's going to be the man in the middle of the wheel. He's going to be the sporting director that we have wanted for 11 years and we have never had before. John Murtough was the closest we got, and it was an internal appointment that, let's be honest, it was never really going to work out. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. He was over-promoted, unfortunately. And Jason Wilcox, who, by the way, he might be the technical director of Manchester United, but he was a sporting director at Southampton. Southampton and Newcastle, by the way, funnily enough, are now the only two clubs, I believe, in the Premier League who don't have a sporting director of sorts. But Jason Wilcox has been coming in. He's been doing the auditing behind the scenes. And then we know full well that Christopher Vivell now is being lined up. It's in a short-term recruitment role, but I think it's got wider possibilities. I wouldn't be surprised to see, if it does work out with him, for him to go and maybe work into like a part of the multi-club model and maybe work closely with Omar Barada in establishing that. But that's the four big changes that you will remember. I'm just going to run through a list now of all the changes that have been happening this whole time. Like Dave Brailsford's come in. On the left, it's appointments. On the right, it's removals. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. Dave Brailsford on the left. And by the way, I will do this in a proper org chart once it's all actually happened, because there's still more changes to come, which I'm going to be speaking about in this video. Dave Brailsford, I've got it down as operations director. He's basically been the CEO before we've had a CEO. The guy who's involved in the audit of the whole of Manchester United and has been starting some of these changes. Omar Barada's coming in as CEO. Jean-Claude Blanc was appointed as interim CEO as Patrick Stewart was booted out. Remember Patrick Stewart, who already existed in the club before. I think he was legal counsel before then. Dan Ashworth, of course, we now know, sporting director. Jason Wilcox as technical director. And Christopher Vivell, who's going to be coming in as a recruitment director. Other ones that you may not remember or may not really care about. I think this one's really quite significant. Roger Bell coming in as the chief financial officer, because Cliff Beattie was kind of, I wouldn't say a Glazer stooge, but somebody who the Glazers knew and somebody who the Glazers had used and trusted. He got removed and INEOS put in their financial officer. So what a lot of these appointments show you that Sam Barnett, he was kind of negotiations manager for 7 years, I think, behind the scenes. A lot to do with player contracts. Just player negotiations that Manchester United were doing. He got removed. I don't know if he's actually been directly replaced yet. And John Murtough's there too, and Richard Arnold. INEOS have, one by one, slowly pushed a lot of people that had links to the Glazers out the door. Not necessarily booted them out the door. Some of them they booted, maybe. Some of them didn't. I don't know. Hopefully they did. Richard Arnold. Bang. Anyway. And brought in their own men. Omar Barada coming in as CEO, that stepped across and showed that INEOS weren't just involved in football operations. And neither does Roger Bell. he came from INEOS across to be the chief financial officer. Basically, them saying the books are in such a state of disrepair, we need our finance guy to make sure that this can happen. And on top of all of this, there's more, right? There is still more coming, hence why I've not done my org chart yet. We are about to get the announcement of a new Erik ten Hag contract and 2 new assistant managers. And INEOS would have been directly involved in making this a requirement, probably as part of the new contract. We don't know whether Mitchell van der Gag is going to go or whether Steve McLaren's going to go. I think Benny McCarthy will leave, but I don't know what's going to happen to the rest of them, and also what Darren Fletcher's new role will be called. Hence why this whole org chart hasn't been designed just yet. And then on top of all of this, we've also got this. Change. Absolutely everywhere. This got announced about an hour ago that Manchester United are taking out the players' tunnel and replacing it. And I think this is a really perfect example. I sent it on Twitter. It's a perfect example of one of Dave Brailsford's marginal gains. How much of a difference is it really going to make to players that they're now coming into a nice, shiny new tunnel? Probably not much. However, it might make 1% difference. Those players then, when they walk towards a pitch, all of a sudden they go, this feels new. And then they remember, well, this is a new Manchester United. And that's the concept of it from Dave Brailsford, obviously. And maybe it will have an impact because it will be new. Just like Carrington is getting a £50 million rebuild to improve this elite performance environment that Dave Brailsford is so core to who he is as a processes man. And just all of these changes, all the people who have left have been businessmen. And all the people who have come in have experience, varying degrees of experience, working in football and business sometimes. Omar Barada goes across both. Jean-Claude Blanc goes across both. Dave Brailsford, more the business guy. Dan Ashworth, more of the football guy. The blend that is being created here, whether you want to call it best in class, we'll find out whether it's best in class. I suppose the results will determine whether it's best in class. But INEOS, it really has just been a complete revolution. Properly. Whether it's the tunnel being rebuilt, whether it's Carrington getting a 50 mil rebuild, whether it's a new CEO, sporting director, technical director, recruitment director, or whether it's booting out the pre-existing chief financial officer, replacing the head of physio. That's something I could have put that down, Gary O'Driscoll. So many people have wanted, maybe not wanted, actually at the start, because so many people were so pro-Qatar and a Qatari bid that they looked at Radcliffe as another Glazer and this and that, and it's just nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. From Barada coming in, a football man. From Ashworth coming in, a football man. Wilcox, a football man. And an extra cherry on top, I suppose you want to call it, Christopher Favell, because we didn't know whether we were going to get somebody in from a recruitment and talent ID perspective. And all these changes are all geared towards making Manchester United a better football club. And that's not something we've been able to say about any of our owners for nearly 20 years. And more changes coming. The 2 new assistants. What else will happen after that? I don't quite know. But I think sometimes I get accused of just being like over positive for the sake of being positive. There is so much evidence that Man United are heading in the right direction. I think there is genuine reason for you to be positive. I don't know how long that journey is, but we're finally going in the right direction. And that's a big change.